Harold, how are you?
Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Council Chambers virtually on this June 22nd. What a beautiful day it is in our community. Members of Council, again, if I can remind you to make sure your mics are on mute and your video is off during the duration of Council meeting. Video can be put on during the presenters, so if a presenter would like to have their video on, that is not a problem. Again, I have texted everybody just a quick test text to make sure everybody can receive it, and that's how we're gonna decide to see which order you speak. So please respond to that when you want to have questions. That way, it kind of just lists for me who responded back first. And again, with virtually, please unmute your mic and then speak directly into the mic when you're speaking. And after you're finished asking your question or making a comment, please hit mute again so that your questions can be directed to the proper administrative staff to answer, and that'll eliminate some of the feedback as well. As well, members of council, you have noticed that there's 2 meeting invites for tonight. Please make sure you're on the correct one. This is the one that is for the public hearing that we all should be on right now. If you're not, please log off yours and then get into the public hearing one. And after we finish the public hearing and we get a break in our agenda, we will log off the open public meeting format and then get into the regular Teams meeting. All right. With that, thank you very much. Administration, anything to add to the agenda?
No, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you very much. If I can have a motion to adopt the agenda, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I make a motion to adopt the regular council meeting agenda for Monday, June 22nd, 2020.
Okay, thank you much, Deputy Mayor. And the agenda is before us. Members of council, anybody opposed to adopting the agenda? Okay, seeing none, the agenda has been carried. Move on to a public input session. Administrative staff, have received any requests from the public to present anything during this public input session?
Your Worship, it's Tom Golden, CAO. I do not believe we have. I would ask if any other member of administration is aware to please indicate so now. I'll take that as a no, Your Worship. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Town Manager. And move on to the next item, which is number 4, which is our statutory public hearings. And today we're dealing with our MTP, which is the Stony, uniquely Stony Plain. Administration, go ahead with the presentation.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is Miles Dibble, Manager of Planning and Development at the Town of Stony Plain. I'm just going to load the presentation here, and just bear with me for half a sec here. All right, is everyone able to see this screen right now?
Yes, it's coming through.
Thank you for the confirmation. So this is the public hearing for Bylaw 2631 DNP 20, Uniquely Stony Plain Municipal Development Plan 2020. And this is an update to the 2013 Municipal Development Plan. An overview of the presentation tonight includes the introduction, what is a public hearing, what is the Municipal Development Plan, and the land use framework in Stony Plain. Secondly, we'll move on to the purpose, including the legislative compliance, reframing the vision, and the administrative updates. Third, the process will include regional context statement, the policy analysis, administrative updates, and graphic updates. And 4, we'll have a discussion and questions and comments from council. Public hearing is an opportunity for citizens who claim to be affected by a proposed bylaw to provide their views and opinions on the adoption of the bylaw. In terms of the Municipal Development Plan, it's the town's framework for future growth. It sets the vision and goals for municipal development, establishing a roadmap for sustainable land management for the next 30 years. The Town of Stony Plain's land use planning framework has 5 different levels: intermunicipal, municipal planning, neighborhood design, land development, and site development. And this, as a municipal development plan, is in the second one, shown here in red. The purpose is legislative compliance. Changes in 2018 to the Municipal Government Act dictated that all municipalities needed to update their own MDPs to align to that, as well as part of the Edmonton Metropolitan Region and part of their growth plan, which is also updated recently. The town is required to update our municipal development plan to comply with it. Another purpose was to reframe the vision. So as you can see by the picture on the left of the screen, our previous vision just highlighted the 5 themes. The new vision, Stony Plain, a connected community, embracing the future, a champion of progress and community values in a metropolitan region. Third, the administrative updates were made, including general text updates, statistics, and restructuring. For example, the graph on the left is a map of a regional context, which was new for the MDP and an update from the previous 2013 version. In terms of a project timeline, the first component of this was doing regional context statements, which were approved back on October 9th of 2018. After that, we moved into the MDP information presentation in March 25th, 2019. The MDP was presented for information again in December 2nd, 2019. We had a public hearing on December 3rd, just after that, and that open house began stuff that I'll get to in a little bit here regarding the public engagement. First reading of the MDP was on February 10th, 2020. Due to COVID, the original scheduled public hearing on March 23rd was deferred until now, and the advertisement for that took place on May 25th. So of the 3 phases, the first commenced in April through August of 2019 was a project launch, visioning, and policy analysis. The second involved administrative updates, drafting the plan, and some initial public participation, and was conducted from September to December 2019. And then in 2020, January until now in June, we've submitted it for approval of the authorities. We've hosted public hearing, and we're obtaining council's approval hopefully tonight, depending on how they vote. In terms of the process, as I mentioned earlier, the regional context statements was initiated in 2018 to align with changes to the growth plan, and it evaluated, or it's indicated 4 separate areas for policies to be updated, including environment and sustainability, economic development, housing, and agricultural lands. From this, the town employed Stantec to do a best practice policy analysis that focused on the 4 areas, and it's one of the attachments in the report in the agenda. As well, administratively, we updated the density targets to 35 dwelling units per net residential hectare. We updated statistics for population, growth, and employment. We updated sections to align with the Old Town Community Plan, a recently adopted area redevelopment plan for the areas of transition. There were map changes to show the development and growth that the town has sustained in the last 7 years, and there were general text updates and restructuring accordingly. On top of this, there were various graphic updates to show how the town has grown and developed over the last 7 years, including updated images and sections restructuring to accommodate the new policies. For the public participation, in December 3rd, 2019, we hosted a public open house, and we conveyed each of the 4 major areas to gather feedback. You can see some of the sticky notes from the pertaining to housing and agricultural lands from that. And then we left the questions open online from December 4th to January 10th to elicit more feedback. On January 10th, the document was approved, and we presented that information in the attachments that are available as part of this report. So the next steps here are the public hearing, which is today, hopefully 2nd and 3rd reading. And then if everything goes accordingly, we will be notifying the Edmonton Metropolitan Region Board, publish a news release, post the updates on the website. That concludes my presentation. Any questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation and the update of how the whole process has worked. Members of council, you've had a chance to go through the agenda, and it's all in there. So any questions or comments regarding what was presented? Okay, and we'll go with Councillor Laurie. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Administration, for the presentation. I have a question in regards to the public engagement portion. And as we see, we are here in a statutory public hearing. And although we're in difficult times with COVID-19 and very limited access, we have nobody at this point in time from our public who is registered to speak. I've gone back several weeks over the town's Facebook page, and I'm unable to find any information on our own Facebook pages, on our own information communication to the public that this was occurring tonight. And so I'm just wondering if administration can let us know exactly what advertisements were done when in respect to this public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Administration?
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Laurie, thank you for the question. Mr. Dibble can provide the details on the exact timing and the methods for communication.
Through your worship to Councillor Laurie, I do not have the exact dates in front of me right now, but I do know that when it was originally, let me just flip back here. When the original public hearing was proposed for March 23rd, we did some advertisements both digitally or electronically through social media, as well as posted it in the 2 weeks in the newspaper. There were no indications from anyone to provide any comments from any of that advertisement. Seeing as such, during this time here, we did what was required statutorily to ensure that it was in the 2 weeks within the paper again, and we advertised it within the website itself. And again, we have received no comments from anyone from either sets of communication.
Okay, thank you. Follow-up question, Councillor Laurie?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to administration. So I understand, and I think, you know, the public engagement we did on this early on with the public open houses and all the information, the survey questions, etc., was great. But I'm wondering why, when we got to this point, we seem to have done the minimum required by the statutory plan bylaws. I'm a little concerned because, you know, with this coming up on our agenda, I would have expected that we would have seen something in front of our public, you know, every couple of days leading up to this meeting to ensure that they were aware of it, that they had the opportunity, and so on. So I'm just wondering, you know, why isn't that common practice? We're priding ourselves on our public engagement, we're priding ourselves on our openness and our transparency, but then we just did the minimum required. And I'm just, you know, it doesn't take much to put something like this onto our news feeds and ensure that it's on our Facebook, on our Twitter, on the Instagram, where people are typically looking on a daily basis. And that might cue the reminder. Maybe they didn't submit it when they saw this back on May 25th. But maybe if they saw this yesterday, they'd go, hey, you know what? Yeah, I've had a chance to look at it. I mean, the final copy, I guess, if you want to call it, didn't even necessarily come out until February 10th. So, you know, there's a long time in between. There's a lot to happen. I'm just curious as to why we're doing the minimum, why we didn't do a little bit more to ensure that people were aware.
Okay, Administrative Staff.
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Laurie. Thank you for the question. You know, in this situation, we have not received feedback or comments back from the public. I don't think the intention here was to do the minimum or not widely, you know, go overboard on what we how we communicate. I guess this has been approved by the MRB. We have not heard a lot of controversy regarding the plan. So given those facts, I guess you know, the feeling administration was that the public in generally was satisfied with the plan, and have not heard otherwise. And the opportunity tonight was to provide feedback if either for or against. So that was the reason why the outreach was chosen as it was.
Okay, so thank you. So Councillor Laurie just made a mention about, you know, maybe some of the different practices and policies going forward into the future as we continue to open up the communications from our town staff to our residents. Councillor Laurie now, please. Your mouse is not working. Hold on a second. Okay, just hold on. Councillor Loy has a question, but his mouse is not working to go through. Okay, thank you. Until we get Councillor Loy's mic operating and mouse working, he just wrote me a note, and the question is, it was mentioned by administration that the densities were increased to 35 residential or residents per hectare, or whatever that slide is, if administration can go back to that slide. Okay, there he goes. Thank you very much. And so the question was updated density targets of 35. That as an increase from 25. And the question was who mandated that or regulated that change in density targets?
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Loy, that was a growth target that was set by the Edmonton Metropolitan Regional Board. So we were mandated and required to follow that density target.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much. And that was part of the new growth plan update. Thank you.
That is correct, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any more questions to staff? Okay, Councillor Meyer, go ahead.
Thank you. Just in regard to that last question regarding the density targets, is that a number that, and I guess through you to administration, would that be a question, or would that be a number that we can continue to expect to rise, or are we going to settle on a number and it stay there?
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Meyer. So the density target number in the region is a controversial and somewhat well debated number, depending on the situation of your municipality is in. You know, infill targets are very difficult to achieve, and some of them are aspirational. So I guess the way I'd answer the question would be, the region landed on that number in the last growth plan update. In the next growth plan update, I would suspect that the circumstances and the environment will be scanned, and either a new number will be chosen or it will be confirmed that this number is appropriate for the region and appropriate for the town of Stony Plain. And then the town would have to go forward based on whatever understanding is agreed to in the future, based on that sort of environmental scan that takes place in the future.
That is correct. So through the workings of the growth plan for the Edmonton Metro region, there was long conversations with the 13 municipalities of some density targets. And one of the things that we are looking at as part of the region is to safeguard some prime agricultural land. And for us to do that, we need to increase our density targets. It's also with increased density targets, it allows us to have better use of our deep utilities and such like that. So those are the things that we've come back to. And 35 dwelling units per net residential hectare here was what was settled on. If you're closer to the core of the Edmonton Metro region, it is higher. And if you go further away, then it's a little bit lower. So there's different variations of the density targets, and that is our minimum. That's just an average for our minimum. So it could be, we could have a development that has maybe on part of the development, it's 75, for example, if it's an apartment, etc. And then the rest of it could be only 10 based on what type of housing. But the average density requirements for that subdivision is 35.
Thank you. I appreciate especially the clarity on how the conversations went in regards to that. The only thing I would add to this sort of conversation we're having regarding this, just looking at the report that highlighted some of the other communities, it seems like most of those communities have chosen to go with the minimum 35, which I think kind of reflects, like our manager was saying, it's a bit of a controversial number, but I appreciate the mayor's comment that it's an efficiency thing. It's dollars and cents that we're aiming for there. So, no, I appreciate the idea. The number may go up, is what I hear.
And that's correct. So as we're doing our revised MDP this year, in another 2 years, the ERMB will be looking at their growth plan again. And so taking input from the counties and the urban centers around the region of what some of the targets are, what our projected growth rates are, and how best to use the land that we do have. Definitely when we want to have contiguous development so we don't have urban sprawl and maintain as much prime agricultural land as long as we can. Okay, and moving on, we have Councillor Bennett with a question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question has to do with RAMP. That's the agricultural initiatives that the EMRB has been working on. I read, I believe it was their final report. Has that been passed yet?
Okay. Councillor Bennett, they're not even close to their final report. They're still working out the terms of reference. It has been going sideways with the urbans and the county representatives on that task force. The counties are asking for more development on their agricultural lands, and where urbans are saying we want to stick with the growth plan to preserve farmland. So it's kind of a switch, because usually it's the other way around. Usually the rurals want to preserve farmland and the urbans want to grow in density, but this has been a little bit of shift switching the other way. So I believe that they're scheduled for our next couple meetings, and actually Mayor Shagas from Parkland County is the chair of that task force. So we should be getting, hopefully things getting going and we get updates on the ramp. Okay, go ahead with the follow-up, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, but Stony Plain can go ahead with the plans that we have in place in this document, and we don't have to wait for the EMRB to finalize that plan. Is that right?
That is correct. So these are the density targets that have been approved by the board for the growth plan. So as long as we meet those targets, then we're good.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions for clarity from members of council? Councillor Meyer, go ahead.
Thank you. Just turning to page 37, just a quick question in regards to 1.1.c and 1.1.d. One references the town will encourage innovative approaches to development and operations. And then in the second one, it specifically just speaks to, I believe it's more new developments. I'm just curious about in the 1.1c, when it says development and operations, are we talking development like land development there, or and when we also say operations there, I'm imagining we're talking town operations. If somebody could just clarify those for me.
Thank you, administrative staff. That's page 37, 1.1c.
Your worship, through you to Councillor Meyer, I'll lead this off and then perhaps Mr. Dibble can expand. But yeah, the word development in this case means new development, growth areas in the town and our buildings and that would be built up. the word operations would mean the town operations in maintaining and operating the systems, et cetera, to run the town. Mr. Dibble, is anything you want to add to that?
Thank you, Mr. McKay. I think that does it quite well. Again, the term development here, I think, is intended to be quite broadly, given that the town does approve planning and development for the entire municipality. It is intended that stuff that we do as well as the private industry does, that we would encourage that through both of those means. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, to also to add some maybe a little more clarity to Councillor Meyer's question is, in the past, the town has realized that some of the development approaches that we've done as a community are not as efficient in terms of our environment. So in terms of kind of the direction the houses are facing, also minimizes or uses more electricity and gas to heat a property. So subdivisions and streetscapes are designed to maximize the direction of the sun. Also, in the past, we noticed that kind of inefficiencies of having cul-de-sacs and etc. So a lot more waste of greenhouse gases to come around subdivisions to clear those streets. It's easier to just have a street connect so we can just continue to drive through instead of backtracking. So those are little things that we've, as a municipality, have changed to make ourselves a little bit more efficient to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases that we produce as a municipality. Okay, any more questions from members of council? Okay, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is regarding, it's on page 204. Sorry, I just have to get there. So on page 204.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, just to keep on not being able to get to my page number, bear with me 1 second. Okay, good. With regards to the agricultural lands, I see where it says, for example, that the town, so under 6-9A, it indicates lands that will not be required for urban development within 20 years remain in productive use, and it says the town will limit the fragmentation and conversion of these lands for non-ag uses. My question is, like, when we have the word limit or protect in the area of agriculture, it's basically describing kind of what we want to achieve. But then when it gets to the how we're going to achieve it, there's not a lot of detail in that relative to, if I looked at the environmental side, where it does indicate what we want to achieve, and then has many directives as to how we're going to achieve that. Will there be another plan here, that a sub-plan for agriculture that will address that? So a question like, for example, when I'm looking at how specifically we would protect the existing agricultural operations, or how we would limit the fragmentation and conversion. In what cases would we allow it? What cases would we not, for example?
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Administration.
Your Worship, thank you for the, through you to Councillor, Deputy Mayor Maddie, thank you for the question. The agricultural areas for future urban development is section 6.8 on page 83 and 84. Talks about some of the things the town will do. I think the biggest comment I'll make here, and I'll ask Mr. Dibble to supplement, would be the leapfrogging of development is the key consideration that increases the servicing costs and causes the municipality some cost pressures rather than contiguous development. So most of these statements in here are there to deal with that leapfrogging potential and to discourage it, or not allow it to take place in good planning practice. Mr. Dibble, perhaps you can supplement my answer.
Thank you. In this case, many of the agricultural stuff are currently being worked on in more detail through the ramp process that was mentioned earlier. So in the case of the agricultural policies that were added to the MDP, to make sure that they were not contrary to any of those policies that are going to be adopted across the metro area, an approach was taken to have these relatively high level. Specifically, there are already certain requirements in place, such as in the land use bylaw, that in the future urban district limits the size area of any subdivisions in that district. I believe it's to 8 hectares. And again, that's intended there to preserve and reduce or limit the fragmentation and conversion of those lands for non-agricultural uses. So again, there's other tools by which we specify these. And I'll just mention at this point in time, administration is exploring initiatives that would allow for more detailed how-to on some of these in terms of some strategies, perhaps over the next few years. But in the MDP itself, as a higher kind of broad policy-based document, they're just intended to provide an overall guidance in terms of what the intent is at this time.
Okay. Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor, anything else?
No, Your Worship. So just that I'm clear that RAMP should be providing us with some further direction, and then we will also be having some supplementary policy with regards to how we are going to do what we're saying we're going to do in this report.
Yes. So there's also anything that needs to be changed is also at the privy of council. So council needs to be cognizant of that as well. And that actually is a good example that I like to provide right now, because back in 2013, when we were doing the MDP, we had some residential approved developments on the northwest side of our borders. For some reason, that was approved quite a few years ago by town council during that time. And then when we looked at what was best for a community and how to grow our community that was contiguous and then that we had the best uses of our resources, council at that time changed that zoning to bring it back to agriculture instead of residential, to the dismay of the property owners. But that was one of the things that we did to not fragment our community. It'd be really hard to, drive 20 minutes to take care of a subdivision because it's built out in the middle of nowhere on the far outskirts of our community. So as a council, we took some heat for that, but we knew that was best for our community going forward. I do too look forward to the reports coming back from the RAP task force and seeing the ways that we can work together, definitely in the tri area, to maximize agricultural lands and protect them as long as we can. Okay. Members of council, any more questions? Okay. I have a quick question to administrative staff. This is our municipal development plan, which is, as mentioned, our overarching kind of building block or guide for our community for the next 25 to 30 years. And we've talked about many things as food security and how we grow residential, grow industrial. Does this MDP, again, allow us as a council, as we continue to evolve as a society and as a community, have urban agriculture, things such as backyard chickens, beekeeping, etc.? Because I know the previous MDP did allow us to as a council, address some of those issues. Does the new updated one allow us to do that?
Your Worship, I'll get Mr. Dibble to answer this question. I can't remember the exact section where this is covered off in.
Thank you, Mr. McKay, and to Your Worship. Section 1.3.j states the town will encourage and support urban agricultural best practices to protect and enhance local food production and distribution within the town's boundaries. And it goes on from there, including things such as some different activities and whatnot. So we do have that specifically in there.
Sure. Can you provide us the page numbers?
The page number in the package is 210. Sorry, I'm actually in the table. Just bear with me for 1 second. I'll find the exact page number. There's actually several different ones. The first one is on page 41 out of 318, or page 28 of the MDP draft. And 1.5D states the town will develop an urban agricultural plan to further integrate urban agriculture into the municipal planning system. Continuing on. 1.5B says the town will encourage and support urban agricultural best practice and the protection and enhancement of local food production and distribution. And that's on page 41 or 28 of the MDP draft. Those are the two that I can find. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. I just will make sure that was in there because, as you mentioned, that this is our overarching guiding document for the town Stony Plain over the next 25 to 30 years. So I'm glad that's in there because I believe that we do need to transition to and at least give our residents the opportunity to consider urban agriculture. Okay. And any more questions, comments for clarity? Okay. See, now, can I ask the administration to turn to page 76 of 324? Okay. As this MDP is properly named Uniquely Stony Plain, Municipal Development Plan, there's two pictures on the far right-hand corner. Can the administration tell me what part of Stony Plain those pictures are?
Your Worship, it's Tom here, CEO. I believe those, we will double check to make sure those are pictures from Stony Plain. If not, they will be replaced.
Okay, thank you very much. And that might be futuristic Stony Plain because I don't know, I've been in the community for 40 years and I've never seen a medium in the middle with trees and grass. So that might be the next 40 years coming up. Okay, thank you for that comment. And those pictures will be replaced if they're not from Stony Plain. Okay. Okay, that is all the questions that I think council has because I don't see any more hands go up or anybody that has messaged me that they want to speak or ask questions. Okay, so this is then again a public hearing. So council's finished asking questions for clarity and understanding. So we'll move on to the next phase of the public hearing, which then all those that are, yes, all those that are actually for the bylaw change. Is that correct, administration? Am I muted?
No, Your Worship, again, it's Tom here. I believe that's the correct, yes. Okay. I see that we're just putting up the contacts again. Maybe allow a little bit of time to see if anybody wishes to contact us.
That's good. Thank you very much. So to anybody that's watching on YouTube or following us through the other social media channels or watch parties, that is the number to call toll-free within Canada, and the conference ID is to enter that after you've been connected. Okay. Okay, administrative staff, has anybody called in?
I don't believe so, Your Worship. I would just ask any other members of administration to speak up if they've been contacted.
Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the next phase of the public hearing. And again, is all those that are not in favor of the proposed changes to the MDP can now state their opinions. And again, please use the same phone number that is listed on the screen and the conference ID as well. Okay, administrative staff, has anybody contacted and joined the conference?
I do not believe so, Your Worship. Again, just would confirm with staff if anybody has been contacted.
Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the next phase of our public hearing. So all those that wish to make a general comment regarding the proposed changes to the bylaw may now speak up. Again, please use the 1-800-1844 toll-free number that's listed on the screen, and then also the conference ID is the same still. Okay. Okay, administration, has anybody connected to the conference?
I do not believe so, Your Worship. One more time, I would ask staff if there's any, if they've been contacted.
Okay, hearing none, I believe there's nobody there, so we'll move on. That ends the public hearing per question. So just one question of clarification to our staff. And so there was, when we originally had this advertised for March 23rd, there was no comments coming in. Is that correct?
Your Worship, I'll ask Mr. Dibble to confirm, but I do believe the answer to that is there have been no comments had been received.
Your Worship, that is correct. There were no comments received either for, against, or in general to the first advertisement of the original public hearing.
Okay, thank you. And then was there any submissions received during this last phase of advertising for our public hearing today?
No, Your Worship, there were not.
Thank you. And may I ask how the public participation went during this process?
The town did receive multiple comments during the open house that took place back in January and December. Those comments, again, are summarized in the attachments to the report as part of the agenda.
Okay. Thank you much. Thank you. And with that, members of council, any more questions of clarity and understanding before we move on? Seeing none, then I will declare the public. Actually, no. Actually, the applicant, which is the town itself, has the ability to make closing comments. So, does the administrative staff have anything to say?
Your worship, the town has nothing further to say on the public hearing.
Okay. Thank you very much. And with that, then I will declare that the public hearing 2631 DMP 20, Uniquely Stony Plain Municipal Development Plan 2020 is now closed. Thank you. And those that are watching through our social media feeds, we will, as a council, we'll be dealing with that later on under the bylaws section of 8.1. Okay. Thank you. With that, moving on to presentations and delegations. There is no delegations. There is no presentation either, but there is a appointment of a deputy mayor. So that is item number 5. So before, this is kind of awkward because we're kind of doing it virtually. So I'm going to ask for a motion first. Councilor Plechko.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. That Town Council appoint Councillor Judy Bennett as Deputy Chief Elected Official for the term of June 22nd, 2020 to October 31st, 2020, or until the appointment of the next Deputy Chief Elected Official.
Thank you very much, Councillor Plechko. Members of council, as you're fully aware, the deputy mayor position is a 4-month rotation, and I'd like to thank Councillor Matties for her work as deputy mayor over the last 4 months. So thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Matties.
Thank you, Your Worship, for the opportunity. It's been unique in that with COVID-19, there has not been too much public interaction, but I do appreciate having the opportunity to chair the meeting a couple of times, or to take over the chair a couple of times during the meeting and our meetings, and I do really thank you for the opportunity.
Well done, Deputy Mayor Matties. Thank you. So that is it. I will call the question. All those that are opposed. Okay, see none, that is carried. And before we move on, I actually need to swear in Councillor Bennett as the new deputy mayor. So I'm not too sure if you can hear this or not. Are you there? I have to witness your signature.
I, Councillor Judy.
Yeah, if you can just repeat after me because I have to go.
Okay.
Okay, so you have the paperwork? Excellent. Thank you. So if you can repeat after me, please. I, Councillor Julie Bennett.
I, Councillor Judy Bennett.
Swear that I will diligently.
Swear that I will diligently.
Faithfully and to the best of my ability.
Faithfully and to the best of my ability.
Execute according to law.
Execute according to law.
The office of Deputy Mayor for the town of Stony Plain in the province of Alberta.
The office of Deputy Mayor for the town of Stony Plain in the province of Alberta.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I'll go over there and watch your signature. Hold on, you can't sign until I see it.
We did. We were close enough.
All right, thank you. I've just witnessed Councillor Bennett sign the oath. So Councillor Bennett, congratulations. And as the next Deputy Mayor, I will be calling on you to take over some of the meetings and also attend functions and such that I cannot attend myself.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Members of Council, moving on to the next agenda item, which is now item number 6. It is the 6.1 and 6.2, the GMP of June 1st and the RCM of June 8th. Councillor Loy, the motion, please.
Yes, Your Worship. The Town Council approved the Town Council meeting minutes as presented.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Loy. Any errors and omissions on those, as members of council have had a chance to actually read through them already? Okay. Seeing nobody has hands up and nobody has chimed in or texted, so I'm guessing that council has no comments. Just let me find my notes, please. Okay, if I can ask council to turn to page 273. So it's 273 of 324. Yeah, so I'm just inquiring about 7.5 under council boards and committee minutes. I've just noticed that the subdivision development appeal board minutes there were underlined. Is there a reason for that? Who sits on the subdivision appeal board? Councillor Loy.
Sorry, Your Worship, I had to get back into, am I connected? Teams. No, I have no knowledge as to why that's underlined.
Okay, administrative staff, can you provide some commentary on that? Because that's something that's not consistent with the other boards and committee minutes.
Your Worship, it's CAO. I'll ask our General Manager of Corporate Services if there's any comment or if that's just a formatting aspect.
Your Worship, I believe it looks unusual in this case because we had so many minutes to approve under item 7 of these minutes. And so that being the last item is underlined just to note the break in the minutes. So if you look at other items, usually there is one noted and it's underlined. And so that's the reason in this case, the Subdivision Development Appeal Board is underlined, as it's just the last on the line of items before the motion is noted.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. Well, that I don't see any more questions, so I'll call the question. All those that are opposed to accepting the minutes for information. Okay, see none, that has been carried. Moving on to our council boards and committee minutes. Looking at 7.1 is the Stony Plain Public Library for February, March, and April. Councillor Bennett, Deputy Mayor, if I can have you make the motion, please.
I move that Town Council receive the Council Board and Committee minutes for information.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bennett, Deputy Mayor. Any other questions or suggestions or anything that that may seem out that council needs to ask questions regarding? Okay, see nobody has timed in and no hands are up. I would ask Councillor Bennett, okay, Deputy Mayor, if you can turn to page 70, what was that? No, page 278. I noticed on this meeting minutes versus the other two that are also being approved at the same time, that this does not list the role that each member plays. If you move on to the next couple of them, they do list that. So I was just wondering if that was just a change that that the library board didn't do it and they started doing that, or they just missed that.
Mr. Mayor, I believe there was one other time that this was pointed out to our recording secretary at the library, and so changes have been made to include the titles of everyone. It just must have slipped by it. That was the February. You notice that in March and April, they are correct and listing titles. So I think after the February one, it was pointed out and that was changed.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mattis, you had a question?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question for the representative, not on these 3 minutes, but it does note that there was an additional meeting on May 20th, and I'm wondering if there's any update with regards to the construction or opening date related to the library, if there's anything that she could share.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mattis. I'm just switching back here in my notes. The first question you asked was about the special meeting that was called, and that meeting pertained to the capital campaign. And a motion had come, or a request had come from Friends of the Library for us to hire a consultant. So we met, the board met. It was special meeting and to discuss this and to decide how to move forward. As you know, since then, the board has decided to hire Rob Savage to help with the capital campaign, and he's developed a plan. It was not the same company that the Friends of the Library had requested that we hire. So that was the reason that we had the special meeting. And as for the other, an update on the building. First of all, I'll just update you on what's happening with the library and relaunching. So the library opened today, June 22nd, just for computers and to allow people to come in. It's a very limited access for public members. So computers and exam requests is all that's available for the public as of today. Of course, our curbside and our curbside delivery is still being handled, and holds are being made for people who call or email the library for books. June 29th, they're allowing for access to the shelves. It's called Grab and Go. What they're requesting is that people come in. There's a sanitizing station at the door. They'll use one entry and put on a mask, and then we're encouraging people to just come in 20 minutes so that the public is capable of getting in there and being able to browse just for a very limited time. As in most relaunching, we're going to see how that goes, and then carry on from there once we know what the numbers are like, and once the protocols and the requirements for the open library is more clear. You asked about the building. We've been meeting with the building committee, and perhaps I can call on our our CAPS general manager to just comment a little bit more on this, but from my understanding, there's a little bit of a delay with the building itself. So not necessarily with the construction of the inside, but the building itself. And so our opening of the new library may be delayed for a few months for that reason. We've also sent out RFPs and had quite a few construction companies bid for that. And again, I'll ask Mr. Hill to kind of comment on that and fill you in a little bit more on how that process went.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for the updates through the collective side. Administration, do you have a update on the library project?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I'll just ask our General Manager of Community and Protective Services to comment. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, we received 16 tenders and we're currently completing the tender review, and we should be awarding very shortly. I would say within the next, by the end of the week, we're happy to probably award to a company. Once that award goes out, I believe the contracts, all of the tenders that came in, identified mid-July is when they were able to start, and we're working with 3 Robins to ensure that they have access to the site, and the co-work arrangements are in place for them to continue or to start their work at the library. Councillor Bennett did mention a bit of a delay with the overall building. About 3 weeks ago, I did talk to the contractor at the site, and they indicated, based on the COVID-19 and the impacts that they've had on their construction, they were about 6 weeks behind at that point, but hope to try and make up some of that time with some additional efforts. So haven't received an update as to where they currently stand related to the overall building, but certainly our teams will be ready by mid-July to go in and start constructing the tenant improvement on the bottom floor.
Okay, thank you for the update. Any other questions regarding the 3 Stony Plain Library minutes? Okay. I have a question to the representative. A little while ago, you had mentioned that the library board hired somebody to help with the design and functionality of the library and with the new space. Can you provide an update as how that is going?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I believe you're referring to the project manager who's working both with the town and with the library. And those meetings have been continuing, and I don't know what else you want me to say. Those meetings have continued, and he's working out very well as a liaison between both the town and the library to develop the best practices for moving our library into the new building.
Okay, thank you. Does administration have anything to add to that?
No, Your Worship, that's a fair, accurate statement.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I thought you were going to ask about the consultant we hired to do the new branding for the library.
That is my next question, but
okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is going very well. At our last meeting, which was last Wednesday evening, we decided on a logo for the library. I think it's really quite nice. I think you'll be pleased. I think our public will be pleased. And so we have to get that everything in place there for us to start using the new logo, and that's something that our library, our board, is looking forward to presenting.
Thank you for the update. I look forward to seeing that during the next presentation by the library to our council. Okay, you see no more hands up or any more but has texted in that they have questions. So I'll ask the question, all those that are not in favor of accepting the 3 minutes for information. Okay, seeing none, that has been carried. Okay, members of council, before we go into the next phase, which is bylaws on our agenda, we're going to call a 10-minute recess. This is the time that we will be logging off this invitation for this meeting, and then also at the same time logging on to our regular council meeting kind of connection. So if you can do that within the 10-minute recess. Thank you. Okay, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, back to our council meeting. And continuing off, we're dealing with bylaws 8.1, and this is the bylaw for the uniquely Stony Plain MDP 2020. This is for second reading. Go ahead, administration.
Your Worship, we don't have another presentation at this time. The presentation during the public hearing is provided the information to council tonight, and we're prepared to address any questions that come forward at second reading or third reading.
Okay, thank you very much, administration. Then going back to members of council, questions, comments for clarity or understanding or suggestions. And we'll move on to Councillor Lowry, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to make a comment in regards to a little bit of the question that I had before. First of all, I'd like to thank administration for all the work on this. I think the MDP is a fantastic document. I've been able to read it a couple of times now over this process, and I'm very excited for what it holds for our community and the direction it's bringing our community in. But I do want to make a comment that I am a bit concerned about the follow-through process on the public engagement. We had great public engagement all the way up into the public hearing portion, in my opinion. And we have a public engagement policy, and we pride ourselves on ensuring that our public is knowledgeable and informed of what is going on in the community. And so I think it was a bit of a shame that we did not see more advertisement about the public hearing this evening, the statutory public hearing this evening. Now, yes, in this issue, the couple of times that it has been put out, no comments were received. I think that speaks to the quality of the work that was done, but I still think it's up to us, and it's good governance for us to ensure we have due diligence and we are ensuring the public is aware. We're bringing that to light that, you know, this is the last step. This is the finish line for this. And so I think it would have been very prudent for us as we move forward to make sure that we do put a little bit more effort into the advertising of these public hearings, especially in the days or week leading up to those public hearings. So maybe it's something we need to look at with our public engagement policy. Maybe it's something we need to look at within the statutory public hearings. But I think, you know, it doesn't matter to me what the issue that it is that's coming to the statutory public hearing. I'd like to make sure that we are engaging and informing our public in those days leading up so that they have that opportunity if they so wish. So.
Okay, thank you for your comment there, Councillor Lowry. And moving on to Councillor Matties, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have two comments to make. And I would have liked to have made one of them earlier, but I hadn't found it in time. But one is with regards to, it's page 203 of 324. And it talks about how, this is the housing section, and it talks about sustainable development and making sure that we have sustainable building materials, alternative energy sources, and those types of things. But I've been through this document twice, and I have not been able to see where we look at improvements to existing infrastructure. So, for example, through the PACE program, or the what's called now the Clean Energy Improvement Program, basically ensuring or facilitating through our community, so that our residents have homes that are more efficient. So with regards to high efficiency lighting or solar panels and those types of things. So that's my first comment. I'd like to have that addressed as to where that is in this document. And then my second comment, and it's minor, but I've said it before the last time we reviewed this, and it's with regards to page 27. And it relates to the second paragraph. It says, there is a wide range of recreation and leisure facilities. So it's referring to recreation and leisure facilities. But then in bullet 2, it describes Stony Plain Community Center, and then it describes a park, Heritage Park. Now, I know that that's our event center, but I would really like it to say Heritage Park Event Center, even though there may be another name in the future. It just provides clarity as to what we're referring to. And because Heritage Park does not do that. So I just wanted to share my comment on that. but would like to have a response with regards to, for sure, the improvements to existing housing or infrastructure.
Thank you, Councillor Matties. Administration.
Your worship, through you to Councillor Matties. So I do see the direction 1.2 on page 39 covers off innovative renewable energy and water reduction strategy. So these are fairly broad-reaching, high-level aspirational goals that the town has set for the future in relation to renewable energy sources, district energy, geothermal energy, solar energy, all these types of things. So the aspirational statements are there in section 1.2. I'm not sure if Mr. Dibble has a different section that maybe can elaborate on the question. Maybe I'll ask him to supplement my answer.
Thank you, Mr. McKay. Through your worship to Councillor Matties. 1.2c says the town will enable and encourage environmental innovation. This includes promoting structures that are constructed using energy efficient design and construction practices, environmentally friendly material, and inclusive of energy. I wouldn't limit that to just new, but that's saying promote any structures, whether that's redevelopment or new development at the same time. So I think that's it can be taken more specifically or more broadly, and I'd like to, I guess, put forth that it's intended to be more broadly in that note.
Okay. Thank you. Deputy Mayor. Okay. Thank you for those questions. Next comment and question comes from the Deputy Mayor, Judy Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make the comment that I really appreciated the addition of agriculture, environment, and housing components in this new municipal plan. It fully establishes Stony Plain's position in these areas. And I thought the way it was written, the comparisons to other municipalities that are similar to us, I thought it was very well done, and I'm glad it really sets the stage for where we want to move towards. So thank you to administration for all the work that they've done on this MDP.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I would echo Councillor Bennett's comments. I found this NDP very forward-looking, and it is a very positive plan. I would have just one suggestion, if I could draw everyone's attention back to 1.1.c on page 37. And now I don't want to get into a wordsmithing battle or anything, but I do want to touch on the word innovate. Now in this statement, the town will encourage innovative approaches to development and operations that effectively reduce the amount of greenhouse gas emissions. Now, to me, the word innovate implies a certain amount of I would characterize it as experimenting or risk-taking, and I'm drawn to, just to bring up a past plan that council had adopted regarding greenhouse gas emissions and the town's operations. We adopted a plan with the last step being an inventory checkup on our efforts to date. Is anybody else recalling? This is maybe a year ago or so. Anyhow, I'm sorry. I wish I could have looked up the actual name of the study. Anyhow, but the last step was an inventory that we were to complete to a tune of I think it was $5,000 or $10,000 was the efforts. The point being, when we add words like innovative, we can justify sort of extra expenses and extra efforts that may not be effective. And so I would like to suggest a change just to this this phrasing and simply eliminate the word innovative, so that the town, so that it would read, the town will encourage approaches to development and operations that effectively reduce the amount of greenhouse gas emissions, and with the hope of just nudging administration, helping them guide them towards finding proven and effective measures, as opposed to, now I wish I could have jogged everybody's memory to this study that we did a few years ago.
Yes,
But
Councilor
I would
Meyer,
like to have,
that was the climate change action plan that we did.
right, yes, sorry,
Right.
thank you. So anyhow, my point is we kind of get into a bean counting efforts there in terms of looking at what we have done. And that is money that we have to justify to our residents. And I'm not here to suggest that we shouldn't take steps to effectively reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. I'm saying we should ask that our admin looks for proven steps that we can take, as opposed to putting forward money to help forward innovative ideas that really maybe aren't justified at this current moment. Anyhow, but I do understand this document is a long-term forward-looking document. So, you know, looking forwards, I think saving dollars is important.
Okay, Councilor Meyer, I heard a lot in that kind of commentary that you just said. So are you going to make a motion to actually change that officially so we can debate it, or you're just providing a comment? Because
Yes, no, I would like to make a motion then, if I could. And that would be just to make a motion to drop the word innovative from 1.1C and leave the rest of the statement as is.
Okay, I think you've already explained your reasoning through your comment. So I'll go directly to members of council for consideration, comment, and debate on the motion that you put forward. Members of council, any questions or comments? Councilor Laurie?
Thank you, Your Worship. I actually like the word innovative being in there. As was already mentioned, this is a future forward-looking plan. And when you actually look in the definition of innovative, it's featuring new methods, advanced and original, introducing new ideas, creative in thinking. So with this document being a forward-looking and a forward-facing document, we might be talking about approaches that don't even exist today. And so removing innovative from this statement, to me, it sounds like we're just okay with doing what exists today. And I don't agree with that. I think this plan, you know, the last time we updated was 2013. That was 7 years ago. There's been a lot that's changed in 7 years, a lot of methods that have changed in 7 years. And so I don't want that statement to turn from a forward-looking statement to a present statement.
Okay. Thank you much, Councilor Laurie. Councilor Lloyd, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I hope everybody can hear me. I'm going to echo almost exactly what Councilor Laurie said. I too looked up the definition of innovative. I had it on my phone here, and I couldn't agree more that this is not a document that's dealing with just today. It's out there 4, 5, 10 years down the road, and there's going to be lots of things that change. And if we're not tasking our administration to look for new methods and new ways, if they just stay with so-called the tried and true, I think it limits them. And there's no dollars and cents that I see attached to the word innovative. So in this plan, so I'm perfectly prepared to leave the word there the way it is.
Okay, thank you much, Councilor Loy. Any other members of council like to provide comment? Okay. Councillor Mattis, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do see Councillor Meyer's view in terms of that there are many existing ways today that we're just not utilizing that will help us reduce greenhouse gas emissions. There's also innovative ways as well. So I see that, you know, I mean, I'm not sure if innovative covers it all. I don't really have a problem the way it is, but I definitely see Councillor Meyer's perspective that he'd like to ensure that we're looking at some of the existing things that we could do today, right now.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Are you making a suggestion change, or are you just providing comment, Councillor Mattis?
Well, we may want to say existing and innovative, or I'm not sure if there's a way we could do that. Otherwise, I think it's okay the way it is, to be honest with you.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions, comments? Councillor Bennett, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think that this this motion it's truly wordsmithing, and when a document has gone through everything that this document has gone through, first reading, public engagement, to change one word of it, I don't support that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Can I respond to that?
Yep, just hold on a second. I'll let you summarize in a sec. Okay. I think everybody's had a chance to speak. Okay, I will not be supporting the motion. I like the word innovative. This is our municipal development plan, so this is for our plan for the next 25 to 30 years. And if we don't have the word innovative there, it looks like that we're not trying to think ahead and move forward as a community. There are going to be new approaches that come forward that may work and may not work, and sometimes Stony Plain might want to be part of that process. One example is that we were one of the original municipalities to have our lights turned over from the old high pressure sodium to LEDs. Well, that was innovative stuff that nobody else has done. We signed an agreement with Forest to have them changed over for a trial period. So if we're not looking at innovative things, that would have never happened. That saved us a lot of money because the transition over was free, and then we saved on the power costs as a community. So I think having that word in there allows our staff to look at new approaches and currently existing approaches that will help us be better stewards of our community and the resources. Councillor Meyer, I'll let you summarize.
Well, I would just echo that when I looked up the word innovative, one of the other words there for it was experimental, and maybe I focused a touch on that more than some of my fellow councillors. But to me, experimental implies a certain amount of risk. And while I appreciate my fellow councillors wishing to maybe the word lead might have been better there, I would counter Councillor Bennett's suggestion that I'm wordsmithing. I am suggesting that we are not leaders on this file, and that we look to other communities that have effectively reduced their greenhouse gas emissions, and we gain efficiencies by following a tried and true path that others can break for us at their expense. And that's where I'll summarize.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? Okay, Councillor Meyer has indicated he is in favor. All those opposed? Councillor Mattis?
Am I supposed to do that through email or sorry, through the message? Or
Yeah,
through,
I'm calling verbally right now. I've just called you out.
Oh, okay. So I would support it the way it is.
Okay, so you're against the amendment. You're opposed.
Yes.
Okay, Councillor Bennett, Councillor Plechko, Councillor Loy, Councillor Laurie, and myself are opposed. So that amendment has been defeated. Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Okay, and we're back to the original motion. Okay, any other questions, comments before I call the question on second reading? Okay. Oh, just one more thing. I think Councillor Manny's mentioned the program, the Clean and Innovative program, and why that's not on the NDP, because this is again an overarching development plan. So we don't want to put third-party specific programs and policies in there that may change in the future, so that we don't have to keep on updating it. So if that's something that the town wants to go down that route, then that will be something that we deal with as a council later on. Okay.
Your Worship, may I just comment to that? I just wanted to ensure that the plan would allow for, or that spoke to that. That's what I was asking.
Yes, and I think that was answered, right, Councillor Matties?
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so those questions are done. You know what? I'm just looking at my notes here, and even though we had a motion to amend, we didn't have a motion to adopt it. So my apologies, Councillor Meyer. So we will still honor that, because that did happen, and I'm sorry. I was actually still under this question and answer period with the MDP. So I'm going to ask Councillor Laurie to make the motion, please, to accept for second reading.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that Town Council give second reading to bylaw 2631/DNP/20 for the purpose of adopting an updated municipal development plan.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Laurie, and members of council. My apologies for not asking the question first before I accepted the motion to amend. Administrative staff, you've been on the call here and you heard the whole competition debate. Do we need to make the another motion to amend by Councillor Meyer to make it valid, or is that what we did was okay?
Hi, Your Worship. I would ask our General Manager of Corporate Services to weigh in if there's any process that she'd like to identify at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
Your Worship, I'm comfortable with the way that it was done. Let's proceed, and you can vote on the second reading of the bylaw.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, members of council, I think we had enough conversation and discussion around the bylaw, so I'll call the question. All those in favor for second reading? Okay. Councillor Matties?
In favor.
Okay, so Councillor Meyer, Councillor Plechko, Councillor Loy, and Councillor Laurie, Deputy Mayor Bennett, and myself are all in favor, so that carried unanimously. Okay, moving on to third reading. Councillor Bennett, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Town Council give third reading to bylaw 2631/DNP/20.
Okay, thank you. Members of council, any other closing comments or suggestions before we move on to call the vote? Okay, everybody here is shaking their head. Councillor Matties, do you have anything to say?
No, I'm good to proceed. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So on behalf of council and our residents, thank you very much, administrative staff, for updating the uniquely Stony Plain Municipal Development Plan 2020. From what I've been following, I know it is a big process to look that far into the future to seeing where our community can be. And that takes a lot of hard work, dedication, and visioning from the staff. So thank you very much for the dedication that you have given to our community. I look forward to seeing how some of these initiatives unfold over the next 5, 10, 20, 25 years as our community grows and continues to improve the infrastructure that we have, improves the quality of life that we have in our community as well. Okay, with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Councillor Matties?
In favor.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, Councillor Meyer, Councillor Laurie, Councillor Loy, Councillor Plechko, Deputy Mayor Bennett, and myself are in favor, so that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. That ends our bylaws. Moving on to 9.1, which is our AUMA resolution. Okay, Administration, go ahead.
Your Worship, I'll ask our General Manager of Community and Protective Services to speak to this.
Your Worship, members of council, City of Spruce Grove has been contacted by the Spruce Grove Library to place a resolution in front of the Alberta Urban Municipalities Association at the 2020 convention related to recognizing or potentially changing the way in which libraries are funded. Currently, libraries are funded through the federal census population statistics, and many communities in Alberta provide or do complete municipal census, which can change our population within that 5-year window of which the federal government completes a census. So with that work being completed or that potential resolution going forward, there is potential for libraries to receive additional funding from the provincial government. In the case of the Town of Stony Plains Library, if we use the numbers from the 2016 federal census and then apply our municipal census from 2019, there's potential for close to a $10,000 increase in funding should the province recognize and make the changes within their grant funding program. So AUMA resolutions require a sponsorship community, and they also require a seconder to the original sponsor. So City of Spruce Grove would be tabling the resolution, and they're asking the Town of Stony Plain to act as a second on that particular resolution. City of Spruce Grove is currently, as we're speaking right now, debating this resolution in their chambers.
Thank you very much, Administration, for that presentation. Members of Council, any questions of clarity and understanding, please? Only questions of clarity and understanding. Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to ask Councillor Loy if you can make the motion, please. Caught you napping.
Yes, Your Worship. The Town of Stony Plain asks as a second for a resolution to be considered by the Alberta Urban Municipalities Association at the 2020 annual convention regarding library funding as submitted by the City of Spruce Grove.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Loy. Members of Council, any questions, debate, and comments regarding the motion that's put forward on the floor? Okay, seeing none. Councillor Maddies, go ahead. Councillor Maddies?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Your Worship. My question is regarding the census that would be required. Would this, first of all, not end up causing a lot more activity in terms of calculating the population in each community? In terms of maybe cost associated to do that as we started trying to look at getting additional funding, and then also inconsistency in the approach for each municipality.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Maddies. Administration?
Your Worship, it's Town Manager. I'm going to just make a few comments about census taking and Government of Alberta at this current time. And I don't know that I have the exact detail, so to speak, but for a number of years in Alberta, the provincial government would always recognize a municipal census for purposes of grant funding and per capita grants and so on and so forth. That's been a recent change by the government of Alberta, where I believe they are no longer going to do that for a vast majority of their grant per capita amounts. And I'm not entirely sure of exactly what that will mean moving forward, but I do think that may come into play in the mechanics of this request and resolution, if it is to be adopted here tonight, if it is to be adopted at the AUMA annual general meeting. There may be some question of the mechanic of how would the province implement this, even if they wanted to, if they're even how does it work exactly, so on and so forth. Anytime you get into per capita grant funding, there can be some that go up and some that go down depending on your population, obviously. Your worship, I'll stop there. I'm not sure if that speaks directly to the question from Councillor Matties, but there are some unknowns, so to speak, when it gets into per capita funding and how they're recognized by the government of Alberta.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Matties.
Thank you. I still have uncertainty as to exactly the process that would provide a fair and equitable process for all. I'm not clear on that.
Yeah. Okay, good question. We'll come back to that maybe later as the council discussion. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
I actually have been working with a councillor in Spruce Grove to push this motion forward, Mr. Mayor. So I have a couple of maybe clarifications. So in response to your question for Councillor Matties and for all of council, the recommendation to AUMA seeks to request funding based on as current a population count as can be provided. There are benefits and costs for any municipality that chooses to conduct a census. Municipalities that choose not to conduct a census will work off of the most available up-to-date population count. That would be a federal census. I'm not sure that there's really a penalty here. If anything, this is a step toward making sure that if provinces like this per capita funding model, that the government of Alberta knows that they are using the most correct population counts by which to allocate funding. The alternative is to work off of out-of-date data for places that have current data, because some places don't have up-to-date data. So I hope that is a little bit more clear.
Okay.
My other comment is, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind me continuing, I was at the Yellowhead Regional Library Board meeting this morning, and it was discussed that most public libraries will be seeing cuts, some up to 10%, because of the economy and what's happening. So as you can see with our public libraries, contemplating that they may have to look for cuts in their budgets, something like this, which is the fair amount that the government should be paying all public libraries. This is a very important step in making sure that we have all the funding that is due to us. Mr. Mayor, I'll just also add that so much of this is now being downloaded onto our municipal councils, and we know the kinds of discussions we had in our corporate plan, and with the amount that the library has asked for and the amount that council felt comfortable with providing. So in my mind, anything that makes it more fair to both the municipalities and to the libraries is a step in the right direction. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much for the comments and providing some of that background information. Any other members of council have questions, comments? Okay, Councillor Matties, did that kind of answer your question a little bit?
Thank you, Your Worship. know in that I have two questions. So basically, if we have one municipality that has funds, and I'm assuming that there's a cost to doing the census, and that's one of my questions is, what is the cost to do a census in an average municipality? And then secondly, that how does this establish a fair and equitable process for every library? I'm not clear on how this solution establishes that.
Okay, I think the comment that Deputy Mayor made was that that the provincial government used the most current possible census data. So a municipality may not have a local census, so they will use the most current one, which would maybe be the federal one or the provincial one. Right, and in terms of cost, then that if a municipality decides to do one based on the fact that they might get funding, then that should be definitely dealt with at their own council levels. For example, in the town of Stony Plain, we have approved doing a census every 4 years on the offset of the federal census program, so that we as a community have a better understanding of what our growth numbers are. So instead of waiting every 4 years when the federal government does it, the federal government does it, and then we wait about 2.5 years, and then we do ours, and then therefore that we have better numbers. And that's something that council approved a little while ago, so that we're able to better make policies, bylaws, and kind of grow our community based on those numbers instead of having numbers that are outdated. So in terms of fairness, so that is fairness. So that's the most recent numbers. So if a municipality chooses not to, then they don't have to. They can just, they'll still be funded based on the 2016 federal census numbers.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, I do have a question to maybe the best one is probably to Deputy Mayor or to administrative staff, because I have a question regarding what you mentioned about most current as possible. Now I have a question and I have concern with that, because I understand being fair to the libraries and fair to municipalities. But what about being fair to the provincial government that funds this? If a municipality does a census and the numbers are down, then definitely, if you look at fairness, then the government should fund the library based on those numbers and not the old outdated numbers that says it's higher. So there's a double-edged sword here, that if we're looking for fairness to everybody, then we have to be able to accept the fact that if we do a municipal census and we submit those numbers and they're lower than the federal census, we will get less funding. Any comment on that? To the discussions with the other council member and the library boards?
No, Ms. Mayor, we didn't really discuss that angle. Maybe
Your Worship,
administration has some comment on that.
Yeah, Your Worship, again, it's a town manager here. Maybe a couple things. I'm going to jump back as well to Councillor Maddie's questions about cost for just a quick comment on cost for census and a bit of brief commentary there. Tough to give you a real accurate number on across the board on different communities. If I had to take a bit of a guess at a community anywhere from say 5,000 up to 50, you could probably see the a dollar amount anywhere from 20 to like $100,000, but that would depend on how much you're doing, how many questions you're asking, how much are you doing in-house as opposed to how much is being done by consultants and so on and so forth. But pretty wide band, but that would probably be that would cover off smaller communities and some of the larger ones. Your Worship, your question about per capita grant funding and how does that work on for a community that sees a reduction in their population count. The best I could tell you would be, in some grants, yes, that does happen. If a community has a population decrease, they will see their per capita funding go down accordingly. again, I'm being general here because there's a number of different grants that go on per capita. Some of them have base amounts, like you get $50,000 if you're some of the smaller villages. For MSI, you get this amount of money, and then a little bit more if your population is X. I believe the intent with this one, or part of the conversation to have with this one, is that it's just simply, yes, it's the most recent data. That's what would be used. If it goes up, it goes down. That's what they're asking for it to be used. I think that implies that if it goes down, that amount gets used as well. And again, going a little bit further, should this get through these two councils and into the AMA and through the AMA, the provincial government has sent out indications that municipal censuses will no longer be used in calculating grants. So that would put everybody on the same page. It would be federal census done every 6 years. That's your number for that year and the next 6 years, unless something changes. I'll stop there, Your Worship.
Okay. Thank you, Town Manager. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, seeing that there is no more, I will call the question. All those in favor? Councillor Matties?
I'm not in favor.
Okay. We have Deputy Mayor Bennett, Councillor Meyer, Councillor Pletchko, Councillor Laurie, Councillor Loy, and myself in favor. And then we have Councillor Matties not in favor. And that motion has carried. Okay. Moving on to 9.2, the AUMA Sustainability Action Award. Go ahead, Administration.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council has had an opportunity to review both a lead sheet regarding this sustainability award, as well as I believe some aspects of the application itself. I believe Council is familiar that annually AUMA has a number of different awards that they provide or seek nominations for. They are reviewed internally at AUMA, I believe, and awarded in the fall at the annual conference. Again, not entirely sure the makeup and design of the conference this year for AUMA. It was supposed to be in the fall in Calgary. I'm sure we'll be made aware of how that's going to roll out. But at this point in time, Your Worship, what I believe I will do, ours is within the sustainability side of the world on this one. I will limit my comments there, but I will ask, or will let Council know that both Councillor Matties and Deputy Mayor Bennett had a hand in bringing this forward and working on it, and our staff had a hand in finalizing things. So, Your Worship, respectfully, I would ask if either Deputy Mayor or Councillor Matties wish to add anything further.
Okay. Thank you, Town Manager. Deputy Mayor or Councillor Matties?
I'll first speak. So I am on the AMA Sustainability and Environment Committee, and I understood, of course, that the awards for 2020 are going to be, the award process will be changed next year. So I reviewed the existing awards for this year, and I just felt that that there wasn't a community that I know of that was more deserving of this award. And we spoke, Judy and I sat together and we spoke of so many amazing things, cultural and social, in this community, whether it was housing, whether it was the library, whether it was our culture department and all the amazing arts and cultures that we have in our community. So we were very limited in the number of words we could use. So Judy and I came up with some ideas. Judy spent a tremendous amount of time rewriting everything and providing a lot more detail. And I'll let her finish off in terms of her description.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was a pleasure and an honor to be part of this nomination, and I thank Councillor Matties for making the suggestion. I will say that when I submitted our ideas and our the list of what we could be nominated for, the limit was 350 words, and I probably had 750 words. So there were so many areas that Councillor Matties and I discussed, and things that we're proud of in this town. And then we left it up to our administration to pare that down. And as I read through this application, I was quite impressed with the work that administration had done to make it manageable and to make this nomination viable. Mr. Mayor, and I'll just add that that this application speaks directly to the affordable housing aspect of our community, and specifically to Folkestone Manor. Mr. Mayor, I just can't stress enough how unique that project is, with the cooperation, the partnership with Meridian Housing Foundation, with the Legion that has stepped forward, what that project can do for this town. And so whether or not we win the AUMA Sustainability in Action Award, that project is award-winning in my viewpoint. Anyway, that's my addition to this.
Okay, thank you very much. Members of council, any questions of clarity and understanding before I accept the motion? Councillor Laurie?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just two, and it's in regards to the actual application form. So I'll refer to page 303 first in our agenda package, and it's what is the status of the municipality's MSP and how often is it updated? And obviously it speaks to our MSP being integrated into the municipal development plan. It talks about the MDP being reviewed and updated every 6 to 7 years or is required by changes to regional and provincial legislation. However, as we know tonight, we have now adopted our new MDP. So I'm just wondering on that one, if there's going to be any change to that nomination to identify that we now have updated that plan and, you know, are continuing on with what was identified for our MSP. And then just quickly, the other one is on page 306 in the appendix where we have to submit, I think it's images of the sustainability in action. Under number 5, there's no link to what's being described. And so I just want to make sure that that is recognized so that the link is put in there before an application will be submitted.
Thank you very much. So that's a very good question on page 303 regarding the update that council has just approved the uniquely Stony Plain MDP 2020. Can this application be quickly revised before we submit it?
Your Worship, certainly we can take a look at that and revise it. I mean, if necessary, I will be in contact with staff to see if there was a rationale for that or not, and make that change, and as well as a link on the 307 or whatever page that is. We'll check into that too for sure.
Okay, well, that's good. And you're absolutely right, because staff would not have written in that we adopted it and updated it, since council had not yet approved it until tonight.
Yeah, Your Worship. The only other thing I could think of, but we'll check it out, and is, I mean, these are awards for items that are occurred or are about to occur. I mean, through the existing document at the time. But certainly probably can add a line in there that it's been recently adopted. So we'll check it out for sure.
Okay, thank you very much. Any more questions of clarity and understanding on the presentation? Okay, seeing none, Councillor Matties for the motion, please.
that Town Council approve the town nomination for the 2020 AMA Sustainability in Action Award.
Thank you very much. Members of council, any questions to debate regarding the motion that was? Okay. I see none. So on behalf of council and our staff, so thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Bennett and Councillor Mattis, for the work that you guys taken to lead the application for the award, and thank you for the administration staff that's provided that support. It is good that we do take the opportunity and time to recognize the accomplishments in our communities. Far too often we're so busy doing our stuff and making sure the community is running well that we forget to take the time to acknowledge the work that our staff and members of council have done to create an atmosphere which kind of generates kind of viability and excitement in our communities. So thank you for that. With that, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Councillor Mattis?
I'm in favor.
Okay. Councillor Loy, Councillor Laurie, Councillor Plechko, Councillor Meyer, Deputy Mayor Bennett, and myself are in favor as well. Moving on to 9.3, which is the 2020 fiscal update. Go ahead, administration.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a few quick comments, and then I'll ask our general manager to speak to the specifics of the report. Again, as council is well aware, we've been working within and dealing with restrictions from the COVID pandemic now for going on a few months. And Your Worship, if I may take a little bit of liberty here, I just want to acknowledge and thank the hard work. In this particular case, some of our finance people have been working hard, crunching a lot of numbers, trying to extrapolate and estimate and do their best to bring some certainty. For those members of council as well as for the leadership team. And Your Worship, again, I would be remiss if I didn't take a bit of an opportunity to thank the entirety of the organization for the hard work, the commitment, and the challenges that they've faced. And frankly, Your Worship, as frontline workers, much like those that receive the credit that's due to them. So. Your Worship, I appreciate the opportunity to make those comments. I'll ask our general manager to get into the specifics of the report now.
Thank you, Town Manager, to Your Worship and all of Council. So administration had committed to bring back more updates to Council this year on the financial results and projections, just because, as the Town Manager said, of the impact of COVID-19 has had and is having still on our operations in 2020. As you all remember, Council approved a 1% tax increase and the associated 2020 revised budget on April 24th, with many items within the budget now being funded by, making some of those hard calls, reducing current operating costs through such actions of freezing vacant positions, layoffs, and cutting discretionary spending. On June 9th, the province changed some of the dates and restrictions in the Stage 2 relaunch strategy, which was unexpected by administration and does impact some of our facilities, such as community centers and the outdoor pool were two of the notable ones, which are now allowed to open with restrictions, which were originally scheduled to be part of the Stage 3 relaunch. Our forecast of the 2020 results at this time is that the town will be in a favorable position compared to the budget, of which the largest impact is the golf course reopening. This was not known at the time of the budget approval. The figures in front of you tonight for the golf course are projected out based on just 1 month, being May, of the golf operation. The weather has cooperated and the public has been utilizing the service. However, there's still a lot of unknowns at this time. Additionally, administration is working on understanding the impact of facility bookings at facilities such as heritage parks to see if the potential bookings are in line with provincial guidelines and whether the users still require the facility. We continue to understand both the staffing, operational, and financial impacts of these results because, as you know, these services we provide are generally at a cost to the taxpayer. This allows us to move forward within the approved budgets as well as providing safe and appropriate services to the community. I'd now ask our Manager of Financial Services just to walk through some of the details that are within the report in front of you tonight.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Included in your agenda package is a summary of the adjustments made on April 27th and the corresponding update as of today. Most of the adjustments have had no change. However, we are projecting a positive budget variance at the end of the year. Council had made a motion regarding utility penalty deferral. As of current, approximately 350 out of 6,400 utility accounts have taken advantage of the program. This equates to roughly 5% of businesses and residents. The amount of accounts in arrears is similar for the same time period last year. Calculations on lost revenue remain the same for this item. Tax penalty was also deferred by Council until September 1st, 2020. Tax notices were mailed at the end of May with the regular due date of June 30th. Residents and businesses were encouraged to continue to pay on time if they had the means to do so. With the due date of June 30th, we are not able to accurately project how many deferrals will be realized. As of today, 14 banks out of 22 have either made payment or confirmed they will make payment by June 30th. We have not had any indications from any banks that they will not pay, which is very positive. Through the COVID pandemic, we have seen an increase in enrollment in the tax installment payment plan known as TIPS. 42 additional tax rolls have signed up for this program from March to June alone. As of today, approximately 30% in taxes are outstanding, excluding the TIPS payments. The payment trends over the past couple of weeks have been positive, and as a result, the town has not had to draw on our operating line of credit. As a result, the impact of the line of credit interest estimate is reduced to $25,000, which is 50% of what was presented in the budget adjustments. As mentioned by the General Manager, administration has been working hard on a plan regarding relaunch of facilities. The attachment included has a status listed for various facilities and programs. 98 local businesses also took advantage of the business rebate program approved by Council. These checks were mailed on June 16th and totaled $4,250. On May 6th, the golf course was permitted to open with restrictions. As a result, this has had a significant positive impact on our budget adjustment since the original projection was based on a scenario of not opening the facility this season. Based on trends since opening, the revised deficit has been reduced by $770,000. A conservative approach was taken in calculating the updated impact, as there are many factors out of the town's control that contribute to the success of the remainder of the season, such as health restrictions and weather, to name a few. Staff is working diligently on monitoring operational revenues and costs with a goal of break even for the season. At this time, the town continues to operate within the approved budget. Projected savings realized at the end of 2020 will provide flexibility as new developments related to COVID arise, or will have a positive impact on the funding of items which were delayed until 2021. This concludes our presentation. At this time, we would ask if there are any questions.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation from the General Manager, the Town Manager, and the Manager of Finance. Members of Council, any questions for clarity and understanding on the presentation? Councillor Loy, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I do not have any questions or for clarity at this point.
Okay. Members of Council? Councillor Laurie?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to administration, with the changes that we're seeing, or the updated numbers that we're seeing, are we considering looking at some of our service level things, especially some of our seasonal employees at places like Public Works, and how some of this change may allow us to create some positive impact there, where we might be able to hire a few of the additional Public Works staff that we originally were anticipating not hiring for the season?
Okay, thank you. Administration?
Thank you, Your Worship. I can respond to that one briefly. Yes, we are in the process of that. Excuse me, Your Worship, looking to bring some more seasonal staff back in address some of our service levels in and around town. Without question, the amount and the scope of the projected revenue loss and the subsequent decisions made because of that, has had an impact, and we knew it. We knew it would, but it has had an impact on some of our service levels, especially grass cutting, some of the plantings, some of the general upkeep, and we are looking to bring some more people back on to address that specifically. We would expect that to happen in the next couple of weeks, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of council for clarity and understanding? Okay, I have a question regarding the comments that the town manager just made. Given the fact that council had approved a budget during spring adjustment, if administration does go out and exceed those budgets for those budget items and hire more staff, then when will council get the motion to approve exceeding the budget amounts?
Your Worship, thanks for that question. Depends on which way you want to view it, but as the town manager CEO is authorized, generally speaking, to spend money accordingly to affect the direction of council in a broad way. And I would, Your Worship, frankly, just see that falling under the authority of the CAO to move some funds around within existing budgets to meet those goals. So short answer is on that particular item, Your Worship, it wouldn't be coming back into council chambers for a formal approval.
Okay, thank you. But administration will provide an update to council if that does happen?
Yeah, Your Worship, certainly, whether it's formal in the chambers as such or, just an ongoing sort of dialogue, email updates, yes. As those decisions change or are implemented, we would do our best to keep councils up to date as we could.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions of clarity and understanding? Okay, seeing none, Councillor Meyer for the motion, please.
Yes, thank you. The town council accept the 2020 fiscal update for information.
Okay, thank you very much. Members of council, any questions regarding the motion on the floor and debate?
I just have one question, Mayor Choi, if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Matties.
Thank you. I'm just wondering with regards to the projected, amounts of taxes that we may not receive. And I know, I read through this, and it was on Thursday afternoon. I read it, but I just would like to have a little bit of clarity as to what's the margin of error here with regards to the amount of taxes we expect to receive or the timing of that.
Thank you through your mayor to Councillor Matties and all of council. As of right now, the tax penalty was deferred until September 1st, 2020, so it won't be known 100% until that day as to the impacts of who is going to be taking advantage of this. However, through our calculations right now, out of $24.6 million that was requisitioned, so that includes our tax portion as well as the school portion that we still have to pay. We've already received payment or have accounted for through tips 70% of that. So we're really only missing 30% that would be due at the end of June right now, which is 7.4 million. And so we feel very positive in the cash flow right now and our abilities moving forward. And we have had a positive response in payments that have been coming in, and we anticipate that they will continue to come in. However, to know the full effects, we really won't know that until September 1st rolls around.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. That provides good clarity. Thank you.
Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Now, this is just maybe I should ask during clarification, but it's come up several times in discussions this week with residents. The Stony Plain outdoor pool. Now, I appreciate there is, and it says in it, reviewing staffing and financial resources. I was just hoping administration could give me kind of a comprehensive, maybe that's not the wrong word, just a review of what those discussions look like, and yeah, just that.
Okay, thank you. I think that the question is regarding the relaunch of the facility openings, stage 2, which now does allow for swimming pools to be open. Where are we as a community at reopening the swimming pool is the question.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Meyer, to the rest of Council, I'll make a few general comments, and then I believe the General Manager can probably speak a little more specifically to the Stony Plain outdoor pool. Thanks for this this question. It is in some ways, or I mean, one of our more challenging facilities, and as it relates to relaunching or reopening or opening halfway through a season and so on and so forth. And I'm sure the General Manager can speak a little more specifically to it, but part of the consideration there is the length of time it'll be open for versus the cost to do so. And I know we are reviewing that. I don't know exactly the number that we're on right now on as it relates to the outdoor pool in cost over the, I would say, the remainder of the year or the operations. But it is certainly more challenging than some of our other facilities that we are reopening or relaunching in due course. I'll stop there, Your Worship. I believe the General Manager can probably add, some further commentary to that topic.
Okay, thank you very much. General Manager, anything to add?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Meyer. I'll just give a brief update on all facilities, and then I'll specifically answer the pool question at the end of the update. So Heritage Park is an example, and the community center are both permitted to open in phase 2. And the majority of the rentals at Heritage Park, based on the indoor gathering sizes that are permitted under the stage 2 relaunch, the majority of them are not considering continuing with their rentals. We also can't have trade shows in stage 2, they're deferred to stage 3. So at this time, even though we're able to open the facility, those that were booked in our facility for the month of July and August have declined to continue with their reservations. One is to be determined, but for the most part, most have determined that the numbers that they're permitted to have in the indoor venue are not in alignment with what they'd like to do. The farmers market opened on Saturday. They were able to open prior to stage 2. However, there was a bit of work that had to be completed in order for them to meet the guidelines that were required for farmers markets. Sport fields, we're working with user groups with respect to them booking and their cohorts and just how they're going to operate their particular practices and adhering to the guidelines. So that's underway, and we don't see that being a challenge at all. Splash Park, is we're working to open that around the first week of July. So July 1st is our target, and we're hoping all things considered and staff time are able to open that in the first part of July. Outdoor pool, as council is aware, we do contract the Trans-Alta Trial Leisure Centre to staff the facility for us during the summer months. We have had discussions with them about the potential of staffing the facility. It's certainly something that they're able to do and interested in doing. We have looked at some preliminary costs. Revenues are a little bit more difficult for us to target simply because we're only allowed 100 people in the pool, or a number of which will permit users to be 6 feet away within the space from each other. So the Stony Plain pool, relatively speaking, just for illustration, if 100 people is the maximum under the guidelines, we're probably around the 20 to 30 people in the pool at a time range, and even that would be probably pushing the 6 foot separation at our local facility. Lessons certainly are another aspect of operations at the Stony Plain Outdoor Pool. Those are also have restrictions. So looking at how and what numbers we can provide and the number of lesson sets in order to maintain the social distancing between lesson sets and participants. So certainly the revenues are a little bit more difficult for us to nail down. From a cost perspective, the costs are creeping up to closer to $100,000 to open the pool. As updated to council, it takes about 3 weeks for us to open the pool and get it ready to go, including the water tests, and be able to open to the public and to allow the TLC to provide the appropriate staffing levels. Just as an indication, we have been talking to the TLC, and from a staffing perspective, just from regarding based on hours of operation, and this is accounting for what we typically operate the pool for hours. We're looking at about $60,000 just for guarding purposes, about $10,000 for lessons, and about $23,000 for chemicals and those sorts of things at the facility. Marginal costs for our staff to get the pool back online. I would say 50% of the work has been completed, as we had some annual maintenance that we wanted to do prior to opening this year. So even with the COVID closure, we proceeded with those maintenance items. So we had to drain the pool and take it out of the winterization stage. So we're pretty much 50% along the way to open the facility. But we are looking at about $100,000. Don't know what the revenues are, which would lower that number, but we don't expect that the revenue stream would be substantial based on the number of restrictions that have been placed under the guidelines. Those numbers could relax in stage 3. Again, we don't know when stage 3 is to be launched from the provincial government. A lot of that is based on the counts and the positive cases between the relaunch of stage 2 and the consideration for stage 3. I think, Mr. Mayor, that's a high overview.
Okay, thank you very much. Any more questions? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All those, sorry, Councillor Matties has just messaged in. So go ahead, Councillor Matties.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just had heard today that there's been 5 restaurants in Edmonton, and I think a couple of bars that have closed because of the social distancing didn't work, and that there's incidents of COVID-19. And I'm just wondering about, when we look at the swimming pool, the costs associated with it and the risk associated with it. Are we not maybe, do we not have the ability to maybe hold off on this or not even open it at all?
Yes, Councillor Matties, that's what the staff are going to be dealing with through their conversations with the TLC, and then also with their finance department to figuring everything out. Yeah, but it's not a direction from council. This is a administrative function.
So bottom line is, I'm just asking if they are, like, there was no consideration in the discussion we just had as to that we might not open it. So I'm just wondering if there was any other feedback they could provide.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, I think too, for clarity, like all of our facilities, we do balance what we would call, a couple things. One is public safety first and foremost. Number 2 is staff safety, and number 3, and maybe not exactly in a hierarchical order, but is the fiscal side of the operation. And I will ask my general manager to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe our initial indications were that all of these things would remain closed until at least August 31st, or something changed. And obviously with the relaunch stuff, something has changed. And we are going through the process of reviewing each and every one to see if we can reasonably and meet all three of those sort of categories. So fiscal, public, and staff safety. And I believe the intent here this evening is to indicate that for many of them, we believe we can. The outdoor pool remains a challenge. I believe, for the public health aspect of it, but certainly for a financial aspect of it. So I guess to be clear for Councillor